Hello again. President Cyril Ramaphosa says if he is formally charged with a crime, he will allow the ANC's protocols to run their course. This follows public condemnation of a robbery at his Phala Phala farm in Limpopo, during which an undisclosed sum of money was stolen. He had been chastised for not informing the public about the incident, and other questions have been raised regarding what exactly transpired. We discussed the concept of crisis communication and how it is unfolding in the presidency. We're joined for this discussion by communications specialist Solly Moeng. Solly, always good to see you. Thank you very much for availing yourself this morning. We must have heard the words due process and seeking counsel over 10 times as the president was fielding questions from journalists yesterday. Would you characterize this as crisis communication at its best or worst?
Worst. Hello, Tutu. No, I mean, look, we know that politicians in South Africa are very good at hiding behind due process, at hiding behind the claim that while the courts are still taking care of things, they can comment on those things. But this thing is not even in the courts yet. We know that there's no such thing that allows anybody, that disallows anyone from having conversations. I think if we have the truth, and the truth is a simple one, you just tell it. You know, that's crisis management. You tell the truth, because the more you leave open spaces, too many voids in your story, the more you give opportunities to your opponents to fill those voids with other stuff, other narratives that are not going to work in your favor. So it's clear that it's a political story. It's also a criminal, potentially, it's a criminal story. We know that. We know that there's political opportunism. We know that about the ANC coming elective conference, Ramaphosa being on the back foot and all that. But it's clear that Ramaphosa has got something to hide, and that is where it's really hard for him.
Crisis communication at its best would look like what? You mention a truth that needs to be told. You also do mention what he has mentioned, that, well, this, is with the hands or on the hands of the police. So what do you believe that he can tell us and what he can't?
Well, I think that he should have sat down and said, okay, look, there's been a robbery. He has said there's been a robbery. So much has been stolen. So far they've said, no, the amount that is being claimed of $1 million is not really, it doesn't even come to that. He should have said, actually, this is how much was stolen. These are the actions that Ramaphosa took. He doesn't. He seems to be deflecting. He seems to be saying to have relied on the head of his protection unit to open the case. But he's the victim. The head of his protection unit is not the victim. He's supposed to have opened the case. He didn't open the case. He hasn't told South Africans why he did not open the case. The president obviously hoped that this thing would go away. It's a big thing. It's a huge amount of money on his farm. He is the president of the Republic of South Africa. There are laws that stipulate how you manage huge amounts of cash, especially if it's in foreign currency. He's gone over those. He hasn't respected those laws. He's supposed to uphold the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. So I think he has better come up with a more convincing story than tell the world that South Africans don't care about political squibblings. He's patronizing South Africans by saying, oh, no, they're interested in this, not that other stuff. So he's doing this really badly. And I hope that this man that he's recently appointed, who's been much celebrated as the best communication person, should show us something. So far, he's not shown us anything.
During his appearance in Parliament on Thursday and Friday, he mentioned that the net is closing in on those who do not want, to see prosecutions where state capture is concerned. He's also been characterized as a champion or anti-corruption champion, if you will. So you speak of him patronizing South Africans. I do wonder, there are some sectors of society that do feel patronized, that here are big allegations, and yet you still want to be seen as an anti-corruption champion. Is that such a bad thing?
No, look, we can conflate as many things as we want here to do. Look, he's still the president of the Republic. He still has responsibilities. He still has to show South Africans that there will be consequences for all the state capture and other forms of corruption that we've seen all these years. He has to do that. But that doesn't mean that he's therefore not expected to account for his own actions. He's right to tell us what's going on. We want to see the Guptas in jail. We want to see the Zumas. The Zani must be in jail. We want to see the NPA being enabled to do what it must. But Ramaphosa must still also tell us what in the world happened on his farm. He must come out with the truth. And it's true that it's so painful because South Africans are forced between, they have to choose between the least of the devils, right? I mean, in political terms, Ramaphosa is probably, and I'm saying probably carefully, the least of the devils, because we'd rather have him lead South Africa to the 2024 elections than God knows who in ANC. There's nobody else who can reasonably be expected to hold this ship as steadily as possible towards the next elections. So if they remove him in December, South Africa and all of us are probably going to pay a big price. So a part of us wants to say, please, 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 be right somehow. We really love to have this president succeed, and he knows that. He's the kind of kid that he throw up, no matter how high you toss Ramaphosa, he comes landing on all fours. But that cannot last forever. You see, he has to trust South Africans that they really want him to succeed, that they do see him, even those who really are disappointed in his leadership, they want him to still be the man to carry the ship to the next elections. They cannot afford to have somebody else. And this is the part that's making it really hard for people. That's splitting South Africans.
I digress, and please indulge me on this from our conversation on crisis communication just a tad. And I do wonder, the Safer Gale informal settlement where some of the suspects are allegedly from, that is apparently 1 hour, a couple of minutes away from the farm in Phala Phala. Is there something to be said about this unequal society in South Africa where you have people who have and those who do not have coexisting, or not that much? Can we continue to sustain that, especially in light of this robbery, this assault, if you will, on the president? What about then you and I?
No, it's not sustainable. I mean, we have spoken about the fact of South Africa being one of the most, if not the most unequal society in the world for a long time. And this division between the very rich and the very poor is no longer white on one side and black on one side. There are many, many wealthy black people in South Africa, many of them beneficiaries of the largesse of ANC politics through connectedness. People like Ramaphosa are super wealthy. And we have South Africans who are being given 350 rands per month. I don't know what we can do with 350 rands per month, really. So I think that something has to change at the way we run South Africa that allows people to, like Ramaphosa, who have millions and millions to pay. You have to pay. We have a progressive tax system. The more you earn, the more you pay. But it looks like some people find other ways to hide money in animals that are sold at high stakes on the market, and they can hide money on their farms. And as we say, within a few kilometers away, there's abject poverty. The same people come there and speak and dance and slaughter a little cow for the people. When we say we have a sense of being loved by the politicians. South Africans, in the end, they need to wake up. They need to say, what kind of country do you want? How do you want to get there? If these levels of inequality continue to rise and to become so visible, there's going to be pain ahead in South Africa.
Just on a closing thought, let's take you to something that we heard from the Speaker of the National Assembly when she was closing the session on Friday following disruptions from the EFF. She made an impassioned plea. Let's take a look, listen at this.
We came here in 1994 being different political parties. We came here being warring groups of people. We came here, we worked together to draw up the Constitution. As part of the Constitutional Assembly, led by the President, we were here, we drew up legislation. It was a difficult period where for the first time we were coming together as people were fighting one another. But in spite of all that, we never witnessed the kind of arrogance and disregard for people, lack of respect, as what we witnessed here this morning. We never fought physically. We would always heckle at one another. But at the end of it all, we learned to understand one another and appreciate all of us, what each one of us stood for.
So, Solly, what you didn't hear at the beginning of that bite is that Ms. Mapisa Ngakula said, and I quote, "I pray that things will be different. What will it take? Divine intervention or will from political parties to actually put South Africa and South Africans first?"
It won't take divine intervention. It will take people like Mapisa Ngakula resigning. She has also a whole bucket of reasons for which she should not be in that position anymore. And we know that because the ANC has come up, of course they led this process to develop a new constitution. We have awesome legislation that's been put in place all the time. But the ANC considered itself to be above the fray, to be the laws are for me, for you, Dudu, and Solly Moeng. It's not for them. So it's some kind of Orwellian animal farm in South Africa. The ANC, if it wants this constitution and the laws that have been put in place to be respected, it must start with its own people. Too many people in the ANC are in positions, whether in parliament or at Lutuli House, our national embassies and consulates around the world, who should not be in those positions because they have acted against the very values of the constitution that we have put in place. Mapisa Ngakula is not supposed to be in that job. So she's like looking down at people who are, maybe it's like, who are just making noise in the National Assembly, and I'm not saying they should. But she has done stuff. She has contravened the laws of the Republic of South Africa herself. She should not be in this position. She should have been the first one to say, you know what, I'm so sorry, I have brought disrepute to South Africa. I'm stepping aside. She hasn't. So she has no moral high ground. Nobody in the African National Congress has got the moral high ground to speak to us from. Nobody. Not even the president, unfortunately.
Communications specialist Solly Moeng, thank you very much for your views this morning.